We sent out kind of a simple agenda, and I'm glad everyone got the word for the meeting. Introductions. If you don't know me, I'm Phil, and we've got Mike helping me run the meeting. He's actually the host of the meeting right now on the Zoom subscription that we have. And then I see all the other players in there, and some I haven't seen in a while too. So that's really, really great. So that means we've got, yes, we've got some folks getting ready to think about soaring for the next year, and that's awesome. We had a list of topics that were coming up. One of them was going to be a possibility of reviewing some survival equipment and some skills if you have a glider land out given by me. And then Mike Newgard's going to talk about some MacCready speed to fly on final glide, and it was kind of a follow-on question to some other cross-country topics and mentoring topics that he's had. So he's kind of been polling the gallery and trying to look for some topics that would be of interest to the members, and given some pretty good chats on them. I mean, he called me and he's talking about coordinating the meeting, and I kind of cajoled Mike into talking about flying cross country for about 30 or 45 minutes extra. So I kind of got the benefit out of that with Mike. So I would encourage anybody. Now, I don't want everyone to call him and bother him, because he's a pretty busy guy right now, especially when he's eating. But it was definitely a very good phone call. I learned a lot too. So feel free to tap any of those experts on this. And then we have Charlie's going to talk about some upcoming events, and he's going to be a main driver for getting our tow planes and everything else lined up for a soaring season that we'll do, in accordance with what guidelines we can abide by the state, and do things smart and try to do things safe and well this springtime, but at least get things rolling, get them moving. So in the spirit of that, I volunteered to talk about some survival stuff. It seems like I go out and, by the way, anyone have anything to begin the meeting that they want to interject, or you want me to just kind of go straight into talking about my survival kit? Okay, so I don't hear anything big popping up right now. And this is a kind of a interactive briefing. We'll see how well it goes on Zoom. But if you have a question or you want to point something out, then feel free to go ahead and do that, and hop off of mute, and then we'll try to get some more interactions and discussion going. Hopefully, like we would if we were in the briefing room there at the Museum of Flight. So I've done some reviews on survival equipment. My background's I'm an Air Force fighter pilot, and the general gist is that if you do land out, or you're in enemy territory, or you're just in a situation where you're incapacitated, they spent a lot of money training you, and they would like to get you back. So they would like you to be alive when they come get you, and then they would also like you to help identify yourself when you are getting helped. For mission planning and thinking about what the conditions are that you might need some of the survival equipment, I see a lot of different approaches and aspects to it. My general gut feeling is that our gliders are not as well equipped as our single engine airplanes are to carry survival equipment, and then also make use of it after we come into a condition where we might land out, or we might even bail out of the aircraft and be getting a silk letdown and a parachute. And then what type of items would you have on you? What I've seen is anything from the folks that are out there over the high desert terrain with flip-flops and shorts and no water bottle, and they're flying all over the place. And then we might get into more of the Ron Clark land, where Ron is flying over the Cascades, and it's pretty hairy terrain below him. And if he had to land out, or he had a midair, had to get out of the air of his glider or something like that, he's got some equipment with him. And one of the things I saw that was pretty good that Ron had was it's a small box that he got from Cabela's, and I think it's like a small ammo box, something like that, but it's plastic. It's not super hard, and it holds a container full of stuff. So if you land or it gets wet somewhere, it's stuck right here, and it's like strapped to his parachute harness. I'll have to kind of stand up and get more visual. So it's attached to his parachute harness, and I've done a couple of. I've been the on-scene commander for some search and rescue missions, which involved various Air Force and Coast Guard assets, and it was actually an aircraft crash. And what the general gist is that if you do not have what you need inside of a sewn pocket, whether you have a really hard crash in the hills and the trees, or if you actually have to jump out of a glider, if it's not sewn into your pocket somewhere and strapped to your parachute harness or underneath it, you will probably lose it at some point during the egress. So what I did when I was going down to Ely to go fly this past summer, is I kind of came up with a little bit of a survival kit. And maybe this is a little overboard, but maybe I carry a few too many things, but I do wear this on my back. So I went to Cabela's and got the fly fishing fisherman's vest. So nice thing about that, it's got a lot of pockets, and an enterprising person can take for the things that are going to stay inside the pockets that you're never really going to take out until you get into a survival situation. These pockets can be sewn with a thread if it doesn't have a good enough lockdown by itself. So you skip the Velcro idea and you take loops of thread with a needle and thread and you sew that through there so that this pocket is sewn shut and it will not lose its contents when you're falling through the sky or if you're hiking over rugged terrain. Also has the inside pockets inside the vest, and of course it's got this kind of big pocket in the back where someone could, stick their fly fishing dip net in the back of their vest here. So I put this on, and now I'm ready to take it and get my survival gear all set up, zip it up. I'm good to go. And now I would think about what happens if I'm going to land out in the middle of nowhere. And surprisingly enough, on one of my flights this past year, I did land in the middle of nowhere. It was about a 6.5 hour retrieve from the time I touched down, got in touch with people. There was no cell phone coverage there. There was no any other buildings. There was no traffic. This was not near a highway. This was in the middle of nowhere. Now, and it was not going to be super cold that night, but it was going to be down into the 50s. So that gets into some considerations on what you're going to do as far as how warm clothing you're going to wear and what color that's going to be and how you're going to fly with it. So what I recommended with I walked around the flight line, I had light colored clothing because it's 95 degrees. But when I got ready to go fly in the glider, I put on my dark pants and hiking pants, and then I had a dark sweater. And now that's keeping me from having, reflections off my canopy. And it's also keeping me warm and in the sunlight as the day is out there and I'm at high altitude. And the typical cruising was between 15 and 18,000 feet in Ely. So then if I had to go through and start prioritizing the items in my survival kit that I've packed in there, I would say, number one item is going to be, cell phone that you took off with and that you have. So it won't do you any good if it's not charged up. So you need to have a set of auxiliary batteries with a proper connector, and that's got to be all charged up. So that would be cell phone, number one, got to have that. For an extended situation, if I'm hiking in the middle of nowhere and my cell phone coverage doesn't work, which that was the case when I did land out in Ely, if I were hiking up and down different ridges, I actually have another old cell phone. And this cell phone is kind of like a memory from the past, but it has a a different network. So my current phone is T-Mobile, and this one is actually an old Verizon network. And Verizon seems to work really good in the mountains, in the western United States. So it uses a different cell phone tower, transmitter and receiver. So I would try, making an emergency call on this one if I could not get through and the other phone wasn't working. Since we're talking about communications, hang on just a second. I've got one of these walkie-talkies just on the charger here in my office, and this thing costs $60 on Amazon. It puts out 8 watts, and it covers an incredibly wide range of frequencies. And it goes all the way from various firefighting and emergency frequencies to the family radio services network. And it also covers all of the amateur radio frequencies from like 140 megahertz on up to 440. So this radio is really versatile. It has a scanner on it and scan all the frequencies. And you can just hit scan. And then when you hear someone talking on there, you could hit stop. And then when they stop talking, you could say, hey, I'm out in the middle of nowhere and I need some help. And that might actually get you some help. So having that radio is pretty good. Also, this radio is tied to not a base station, but the radio that I have in my truck. So my truck that's full of gas and is attached to my trailer with the keys in it, it also has a radio just like this, except it's got a larger antenna. And people that are driving in that truck, they could broadcast and I might hear them. I might be able to guide my truck to where my location is if I can't reach them some other way. All of this is kind of nice and secondary, and this is so small the antenna comes off, and then I just take it and I put it in my fishing vest. All of it takes a back seat to this bad boy right here. So Garmin inReach. And I know that things are sometimes underfunded in club operations or having your own ship or whatever, but I can think of probably a million scenarios where this inReach device, it works. Let's say that I crashed 2 miles off of the departure end of my local glider port, and I'm in a ditch somewhere, and I'm injured. If this thing is working, I can sit there and I can text people to come get me. Or if they can't get me, I've got the SOS on the side. And I fly with this. I drive with this everywhere. I carry it in my 757. And if I need it, I'm going to turn it on and use it. So what happened when I did my land out? It was it was actually one of the more fun stories of the time I went down to Ely, even though it did result in a land out. It was a gangbuster day. I had really no possible thought that I was going to land out. I was at the red line at 18,000 feet cruising and everything was great. I even gave a call to one of the other guys. I'll be home in an hour. It turns out in an hour and a half, I wasn't home. I was in the dirt in the middle of nowhere. So the conditions can change rapidly. And you have to learn to read those and adapt to them. And that was even though I had a motor glider. So I did not have enough battery juice, and the Mini-Lac has an electric motor on it to get to an airport or get back to my home field. I could motor around, I could look for other fields and choose my landing fields carefully, but I didn't have enough juice to get back home too long because this is really out in the middle of nowhere. So the inReach landed, started texting my buddies and started getting texts back from them. And that worked out like a champ. So they knew exactly where I was and were able to reach me. And all you have to do is know their cell phone number and you can start texting someone inReach. Your cell phone, whether it's a Samsung or iPhone, it has a program with the Garmin inReach. And it basically, this inReach can be somewhat tedious when you're typing on it and trying to get to different keys. And hit send and crafting a message. But when this is tied via Bluetooth to your cell phone, you go to your cell phone and you start texting and typing, and it goes through the satellite phone. So this becomes a transmitter receiver, and this becomes your typing device. And that works out real well when you're out in the middle of nowhere. And it also calls up all the maps from your GPS on this. Speaking of maps, got another standalone GPS device. So I know where I'm at, and I got magnetic bearing and range, and I can go to different places. I can also know where I've come from with another, this is the Bad Elf GPS. So that's if I'm going to get help, I'm just going to kind of wait around. And my wife actually saw my messages with my land out and was said, boy, you're really in the middle of nowhere. So things I like to have when I'm out there traipsing about, I've been flying for 6 or 7 hours, is I like to have a clean pair of socks if I'm going to go do some walking. Okay, so I get things all changed up. I've got my bottles of water. I hydrate myself so I'm not making some bad decisions. And then I've got a longer red and orange sleeve shirt that's got reflective material on it. So that reflective material is that, hey, if I'm out walking, even if it's getting near dark, people could see me if they really needed to. It goes without saying to have a flashlight, first aid kit number 1, first aid kit number 2, and then getting into some various good to have things would be Swiss Army knife, and I also fly with a big blade that's got more cutting power if I need to saw into something. Got a bag that's got some zip ties and some paracord in it. So if I need to tie something off, or heaven forbid, I've got to make some type of a tourniquet because I've done a crash landing in a field somewhere and I'm bleeding out. Well, I can tie something off with this, and it's all right here on this vest. Got another one if I was out in the boonies for a long period of time. It's an old Air Force and U.S. military survival manual. It's not real thick. It tells you everything on how to make fires and little makeshift shelters and things like that. More paracord, and then you've seen the big whistles that they carry, you know, for search and rescue when you're hiking. The big orange whistle that's super loud. I won't blow on that here, but having a big whistle, you don't have to yell for anybody. And you can actually, if you're walking about, you can just keep blowing on that whistle and someone may hear you. I also have some other bells that look like little jingle bells, and I carry them and I strap them onto my vest, and then they just jingle around as I'm walking. And maybe a bear hears it and just gets out of the way, or maybe someone walking on the trail hears me walking and they say, what is this guy doing? So it's a way of creating noise. I don't have to waste my breath or waste any water or anything to make that noise. It's just little jingle bells going on. Fire starter. So, you know, some type of fire starter. This one's an electric one, but it's got that little hot flame in it. And then a compass. And probably one of the best devices ever is a signal mirror. So having a signal mirror out there where if someone, it's daylight and you're trying to get their attention and you want them to come your way, signal mirror is going to be pretty good, especially if it's a search and rescue folks. I got a pair of shades because walking around the desert the next day with no shades kind of sucks. I got one of those fold up soaring hats like the ones guys wear out on the flight line, except this is a little thinner version of it and goes in my pack. Got a little, this is a thicker roll, but I have another roll that's smaller. It's almost used up, of duct tape, Gorilla Tape, in case I need to use it on something. These are the fire starters. You can, you know, start whatever fire you want out there. Hand warmers, those don't take much room. And then a set of earbuds for my phone, so I can talk and actually maneuver my hands at the same time. A spare, and the paracord could be used as this, but I got a spare pair of boot laces as well in case something gets snapped and trashed. So maybe you can see that I'm trying to, at least if I landed it out, I can contact someone with this number 1 device. I've got more clothes. So I got, another beanie cap. Oh yeah, these two, I have these gloves in there, and they're waterproof. And if you're walking around and you're putting your hands on a lot of rocks and stuff, it'd be real nice to not have your hands all cut up while you're out there walking around. So a good set of gloves, anything else that might help you keep warm. And then I have I had it with me. Hang on just a second. This may be a little bit controversial, but I was flying just the other day going in from Seattle to Lahui, Kauai, and we got the laser illumination event. So I think this laser in the background, if you guys can see that, it's kind of just got a little laser, it's a diffuser pattern on there, but it's pretty bright. And I estimate that the guy who was lasering us the other night did not have a laser pointer any more powerful than this one, and he had it without the cover on there, so it wasn't being diffused. And he was at least 5 to 7 miles away from us, and it was very bright. So it didn't damage either one of the pilot's eyes that were in the cockpit at that time. But the guy didn't really nail us with, we just didn't keep the beam on us. But any time he brought it near the jet, I mean, we could see it very, very bright. And, I've heard some guys say that if they land out in the wilderness, they'll start a forest fire so that, they'll, at least the fire crews will start showing up at some point. And I've seen some forest fires that go on for days and there's not anything getting put out. But one thing I will tell you is that you don't want to ever, point this laser at someone because it's against the law. However, if you are about to bleed out and die and you point this laser up at some aircraft, possibly even in the daytime, or you point it to where some rescue folks are going to come, you will have a lot of federal agencies trying to locate you. And they may just be trying to locate you because they want to arrest you. But you're going to, if you're injured and you're about to bleed out, you might want to have somebody come see you. And of course, having a VHF radio and contacting overhead aircraft, that's the first thing you can try to do as well if your radio is still working, or if you have some type of a handheld device and you can transmit your location. So before you start transmitting, get all your data down of where your actual location is and what they can do for you, because there's a lot of air traffic flying over, and you can contact them as well. So those are some of the things I'll just throw out. And 2 articles I saw. One of them was the search and rescue that I did, and it was a Long Easy aircraft that crashed 100 miles off the coast of Maui. And I learned some interesting things from that. I'll send a link out to the actual incident from on the news group after the briefing's over with. And another one was a guy that crashed in the Sierra Nevada, and it was I think it was in a mall, and he attended to one person that was somewhat injured, and then there was another person that was really going to die, and they couldn't really do much for him. And he hiked out for 8 days. He finally made it to a road intersection and a coffee house, and he pulls in there and he says, "Okay, yeah, you guys found the wreck by now." And they said, "What wreck?" So he gets in the search and rescue aircraft and takes them to the site where he had crashed 8 days ago. And there were no survivors there at that point. But the point of the deal is that he actually hiked out for 8 days. And if he'd have had some of this equipment, he might not have had to, hike for 8 days. He might have been able to kind of sit put, not risk injuring himself, climbing around on the rocks day and night, and actually have someone come get him. It can happen a couple miles away from the airfield, or it can happen way in the middle of nowhere. So I would urge most clubs, if you have a glider and you can afford the fee, and this thing could fly in the glider, that wouldn't be a bad safety addition for any club. It would be really nice. And I never fly without it. So I'll open up to questions, comments, things like that people have thought of. I'm sure there's a lot more ideas out there. Mine is just kind of a smattering of things that I've seen over the years, and I've done the Arctic survival and I've done the desert survival, and none of those courses are any fun.
What jet did you fly, Phil?
I flew in pilot training, T-37, T-38, and then I flew the F-15, the F-16, the F-22.
Ah, cool. That's curious.
Yeah, it was better than working.
Yeah.
Anybody have any other survival stuff and things that they use and stuff that would be good?
Yeah, hey Phil, if you don't mind, I didn't hear if you said this early on. I'm sorry, I joined a few minutes late, but one thing that a few folks recommend and I highly recommend is called a SMAK pack, SMAK. Did you cover this earlier?
Maybe, maybe not.
This is from Silver Parachutes, Alan Silver. The SMAK stands for Save My Ass Kit, and they're really affordable. This is the medium-sized one. And it's a little pack you buy online. Just look at Silver Parachutes. It's got Velcro, so you can strap it to your parachute, and you strap it somewhere you can reach it where it's not going to interfere with the chute opening. And in one of the back pockets, it's got a signal mirror, a whistle, and some fire starters. And then in the front here, it has a real quick release hook blade, which is safe. It's not going to cut you like a razor would, but it's real easy for freeing up your parachute lines when you land and or cutting up your parachute once you land. And if you need extra paracord or you need to use the fabric for anything like tying off a wound or anything like that. So these are really handy. And since they strap right to your parachute, you just always fly with them. I check this out at the beginning of every season, strap it to my parachute, and I just leave it on my parachute all year long so that anytime I go flying, I've got this with me. So again, that's a SMAK pack, S-M-A-K, or SMAK kit from Silver Parachutes.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Manufacturer of SMAK pack is retired. I heard this kind of word. So is it still available?
It was as of a year or two ago. I haven't checked in the last year, but I'd be surprised if they stopped selling them. I'll take a look here after I'm done talking, and I'll write in chat if I find that they're not available.
I'm looking at the Silver Parachute site right now, and they are available. There's a number of different ones.
Sweet. The other thing, Phil, I just want to second the whole Garmin InReach thing. I flew with a Spot for a few years, and I've switched over to the InReach, and I think it's a much better system. The latest generation is really small, as you can see, and you can still tie it up to your cell phone, like you mentioned, but in case people are worried about having too much tech or having to connect too many things, one of the nice things about the Spot, or excuse me, the InReach that Phil didn't mention is you can set up a pre-recorded message. So, and you can set up a few of them. And it takes like 3 button presses to fire them off. So I have one that's like, hey, honey, I'm getting in the glider now to fly. And I have another one that says, my flight's all done, everything's good. And then I have another one with, I've landed out and I need help. And at the beginning of every flight, I just fire off the first one and my wife knows I'm flying. When I land, I fire off the second one and she knows I'm home for the night. And I hope I don't have to fire off the third one.
Beautiful.
Bill, are you saying you carry all the gear that you just showed us in your vest or strapped to your body?
Yes, I do. Yes, I do.
So your weight goes from whatever to 20 pounds more?
You know, I haven't actually weighed it, you know, with me being on the scale, but, you know, just lifting up the bag, and I would be surprised if it weighed more than 4.5 or 5 pounds.
You mentioned hydration, but you didn't mention how you carry that with you, independent of the ship.
I have the Camelback, like you probably might have. I have the Camelback, and I generally don't use the Camelback when I'm flying. I usually I just gulp a bunch of water and then I set the bottle down. So now my Camelback is really for me if I get out later on. Now if I'm about to go land at the field, I might drain my Camelback, but I leave the Camelback as part of my water reserve.
For those that don't know, when I was running the Nationals at Nephi in 2018, we had Dave Nadler's Arcus have its wing separation in midair. And after it got loaded up with G's, it looks like it was some kind of tail failure first, but to this day, we don't know what happened. But the bottom line is both Dave and the U.S. Air Force Academy student who was flying in the back seat with him had to bail out. And luckily, they were both fine. They were a little bit injured in the bailout, but glossing over that whole evening, because it was a crazy evening being in charge of that whole situation, the good news was we were able to learn from their experience, and they were both able to give an interesting talk a couple of days later about that. And something that I'd heard in previous survival presentations was really brought home, which is that anything that's not firmly attached to your body is gone if you bail out. And if you think it's on, I mean, even Velcro is suspect. There were things that Dave Nadler had, like glasses in his pocket, a plastic belt clip for his spotter inReach, and all that stuff broke or disappeared when he got out of the aircraft. So understanding what to keep on you in case you have to bail out and what to keep in the glider in case you land out is something you got to balance, but definitely put some thought into.
Awesome. Well, if nothing else really going on that, we'll put it towards Mike Newgard if he's ready to talk about
say.
a question that was presented to him, and he's going to give us some good notes on that.
We'll try. This is a kind of a second question that was asked when the original question was asked that we covered last week or last month. And it was, the question basically asked was, how did I keep up so fast? And we chatted a little bit about using MacCready during the flying. And now I'm going to talk a little bit about MacCready and Final Glide. And I'm going to cover this wide. There's people on here who have lots of experience and some who are still down in the weeds trying to learn, and going to try and cover everything here, 5 to 10 minutes. What the MacCready Final Glide does is it determines the height that you need to, that will get you back to the airport at a certain height. Well, it determines the height to go a certain distance based on your current altitude and the MacCready setting. And you set the destination. There's a feature called safety height you have in your program. Most programs run your destination waypoint is a certain height, and you can put in a safety height, or you can program in a certain height in your database. Just go in and text edit and modify your database. But usually it's a safety height feature in your navigation program, whether LK, Clear Nav, Glide Nav, Top Hat, and I'm not a Top Hat expert, so, or an LK 9000, I'm not sure. Anyway, but what it's doing is figuring out, based on your MacCready and how far you are, what your height needs to be to get back to the airport or back to that destination. The MacCready setting is should not be based on what you've been averaging, unless you want to. Typically, it's based on your last thermal strength. And the whole idea is it's minimizing the time of that last climb and the cruise time back to that destination. Typically, it's in a perfect world, in a totally homogeneous, uniform world, you've been flying in 3-knot thermals or 5-knot thermals the whole day, and that last thermal is 5 knots, you don't have to change anything. But if your last thermal is 3 knots because you've been getting low and it's in the end of the day, then it's saying if you set it to 3, it's going to say you're going to take not as much time climbing, but you're not going to get back as fast as you had been flying earlier in the day. But it's minimizing the time from the climb and the glide combined together. Typically the speed is different for your interthermal flying than your final glide. You're not going to follow the needle. If you have a speed to fly function, you're not going to follow the needle on final glide, because that is assuming that you're trying to cruise between thermals. You're not going to another thermal. You're going to the airport. So typically your speed is going to be slower than your interthermal speed calculated by the speed to fly function. And it's going to take some doing. The best way, the only way I've done it ever, is you have to set your settings so that it doesn't tell you what your height needs to be. You set it so that there's a differential function that tells you how far above or below the glide slope are you. And you fly as fast or as slow as it takes to maintain that differential is close to 0 all the way. If you fly in some sink, you will slow down because you're going to sink a little bit faster. You're going to go below glide slope in sink. It's counterintuitive to the speed to fly, where you speed up and sink. You don't do that here in final glide. If you do that in final glide, you're going to force yourself down because you're not going to be able to make up that altitude later. Now, if you do have lift along the line, along your final glide, then you can speed up because you've already met your final glide, but you're again trying to minimize your time. So as you get lift, you don't slow up in lift to climb. That just puts you behind everybody. You slow up, it's going to take longer to get back. But if you have lift, you're going to speed up. Now, one of the things to do is to add conservative factors in there. You either, part of it is the safety height. You have additional altitude of the safety height. Typically at the airport, non-contest situation, I'll put 1,000 feet in and I'll adjust that for the contest depending on where is the finish line. Is it at the airport, or is it a mile out or 2 miles out, or a remote finish? You have to be able to get to the airport or get to your landing pattern from your finish point, but you also want to put some safety height in there in case you want to fly around a little bit to enter the pattern and not conflict with anybody, to deconflict in the pattern. And you can add more to that safety height, maybe 1,500 feet. It all depends. And if you have sink in the last few minutes, few miles, that's just going to eat into that safety margin. The other thing is to fly with a slightly higher speed to fly than what you're actually doing. For example, the last thermal may be a 4-knot thermal, and I put in 5 knots, and it'll tell me, okay, I need to be a little bit higher. But what that does is give you a little bit higher speed, so you have a wider speed range to get back. You may be flying the last, instead of at 4 knots, it says you're coming back at 65 knots. At 5 knots, it's going to say you're going to come back at 70 knots. Well, that gives you a little bit of range to slow up, speed down, slow up, or to slow up or speed up, and to maintain that final glide slope. So the conservative factors like extra safety height, higher MacCready. It means you have to climb a little bit longer, but again, you're trying to get back to the airport and not compensate. You can leave your thermal early if you are confident, and this is experience, practice, knowledge of the site, local knowledge. If you know you're going to step on an energy line, excuse me. If there's an energy line out there, sometimes some places it was 1,000, 2,000 feet below glide slope, and just as you're going along, watch the altitude slowly come up. You're not really on final glide until your differential height is 0. So you may be in 4 knots of lift and you're still 60 miles out, but the next 20 miles is the rest of a cloud street. You can start early. It's just when you get to that point where your glide slope, when you hit that glide slope, because you're coming in from underneath it, when you finally hit the glide slope, then you have to start cruising at whatever that speed is. And every glider is different, what speed it works for what value, and you have to practice some final glides to make sure that you know what that speed is. But it's different than what the speed to fly gauge is running. Anyway, any questions? That's it for my prepared stuff. Now let's go fly.
Yeah, I wonder if anybody's seen some times when the MacCready setting and their final glide that did not work out. They're not the way they planned, and not really just from hitting a massive sink or whatever, but they misgauged the assumptions or something like that. Anybody have any good stories on how that's worked for them or not worked for them? I guess the real story would be if it didn't work for you and you had to stop in thermal like 3 times on the way back. So,
Mike, I have a question. This is Alan.
Yes, Alan.
What would you do if you have abundance of altitude and you're flying in the 80s, 90s, or 100s or more, and your instruments are either they're constantly telling you to slow down, slow down. Is there any way of neutralizing those push-pull readings?
I believe so. I think some instruments have a switch that you can switch it between glide or just straight vario and climb cruise. You can reset your MacCready so that for example, if it's telling you you're going to go way faster than you're willing to go, then set your MacCready speed down. Just remember to change it when you do that last thermal. For example, typically, even in a contest, I'll run it at 3 or 4, but and it'll tell me to go faster whenever I'm approaching a thermal. And I know I'm coming up to a thermal, I'll just disregard it. the same thing leaving a thermal. It says speed up because you're going through sync, but it's
Yeah.
it doesn't get you. You don't lose a lot of time if you're not exactly on MacCready. The good doctor did an analysis once, and he said, and this was ages ago, and he said, if you're not perfectly on it, it's 1%, and you can lose that in a couple of turns. during the
Uh-huh.
day.
I
So-
guess for experience, I found that really the only instrument that I'm using at the much higher speeds is a half inch above the horizon or a half inch below the horizon, trying to keep steady, steady flight. If I'm in lift, at 100 or so, that I'll be flying slightly a quarter inch above the horizon for a while until that tapers off, and then just lay it down a half inch below. Have you experienced that type of flying? I'm sure you have.
Well, it'll be, if I feel I'm in lift, I'll slow down a little bit. If I feel I'm in sync, I'll speed up a little bit. But typically I don't go over 100 or 110 knots.
Yeah.
I haven't.
But you're not relying upon a push-pull at that point. You're actually just
Yeah, I'm waiting for it to
Well,
tell
yeah,
me
like,
that something's coming, but typically if you're listening to the Vario, it's going to tell you before, because you're going to start getting a
Yeah.
sense that it's going to be
okay.
hitting lift, or you're getting close to something, or really good days, you got lots of visual cues that say you're coming up to something. So
Okay. Well, thank you.
yeah, sure.
Awesome. Well, I think it's time for Charlie to tell us about a few upcoming events and some of the preparations that's going on for that. And we do want to thank Charlie for stepping up and wanting to run the dust up. So that's going to be it should be a fun time. Get over there and have get something out of the dust up. We'll see how that plans out. Charlie, you want to take it from here?
Yeah, hold on a second. I'm trying to put this up here. All right. Maybe you see this right here.
Looks good. I can see it.
Okay. Anyway, so this is kind of the schedule for May and June. So I'm going to bring the Pawnee over to Arlington for the stated reason, mid-March to mid-April, to support the DG 1000 checkouts. And, if any SGC members that maybe aren't Evergreen members want to come to Arlington and fly, it might be a little cheaper there. And the most important reason is to make sure it's ready for the season. I'll put out a sign up genius for that and get some topaz organized. And the 182 will be test flown over in Freda. We're not going to bring it over because it doesn't work very well on a grass runway. So on the dust up, I took charge of it. So it's May 28th to 31st. 20th will be a practice day. There'll be some form of competition next 3 days. I'm still working on the format. Obviously I'm the organizer, and if someone wants to help me with that format, I'd appreciate that. Otherwise I'll keep it really simple. And then Region 8 is June 13th through the 19th. That's organized by Noel. And then Methil Valley, which I'll be doing my twist operation at the same time, will be June 20th to the 27th. And Brad will be organized in Methil Valley, and Metal, I guess it's Metal, right? And I got twist organized. You may have any questions about the schedule or the tow planes in particular or anything like that?
Yeah, Charlie, any word from about Tony Wiedeker? Is he going to be flying this year?
Yeah, he is. It's right. Hold on a second. I got it right here. It's in June. Everything's happening in June. So he's going to be doing his thing the 5th to the 12th of June. And then, Evergreen will probably be doing something there too. So, everything's pretty much up in the air.
So assuming, of course, COVID doesn't get in the way, we're looking at tow plane availability every day. I assume the Evergreen group, Evergreen's going to go over for the week after dust up. So we're looking at a tow plane availability in Ephrata every day from May 28th through June 19th. And then tow plane availability every day from June 20th to the 27th in Methow. Is that a true statement?
Yeah. And then, Region 8, you can catch the tail end of that. I've been out in Region 8 before, and, after they launch the competitors, or possibly before, you can usually get in there. But yeah, June will be definitely a good month to be out in Ephrata and the Methow Valley.
Thanks.
Any other questions?
Yeah, I like it. Charlie is our new tow plane manager as well. So we've got some experience going in, getting airplanes worked on. He's got his own glider. He's tow pilot. Got a hangar. We have some synergy going on with that, and anything we can do to help out Charlie in either getting tow planes scheduled or with the new experimentation with the sign up genius, that would be greatly appreciated. I guess one of the things I'll bang the drum on just a little bit is that we haven't flown in quite a while, so anything that we do to kind of get our flight reviews done or get our some initial flights to knock off the rust before a dust up event or something like that, a larger event, that would be awesome to try to get those get some flights in. And we're working on ways of helping people get some type of flight in to knock off the rust, and having the tow plane working and available is going to be a big step in that direction, and that will help out all facets of the operation.
No, that's actually a perfect lead in. This is Jim speaking. So I had the fortune of actually talking with both Mike Delaney last night as well as Eric Haupt. And Eric is in the process of putting together a online glider recurrency training of sorts. And he's actually doing that through the FAA, I think, on the WINGS program. So that seminar has not been approved quite yet, but he is, I know that he's authorized to do WINGS program. So we should actually have a date and a time available for everybody that hasn't flown in a while or just wants to get up to speed on currency, at least on the book end of it, and thinking about it, available from Eric. So Eric has been teaching quite a bit down at PSSA, and he's also done a lot of instruction with Evergreen, and he's now flying for the airlines after having worked at Regal for a number of years. So he's very active in the Soaring community, and I think most of you know him. So I look forward to that, and I'll try and get that information out as soon as we get word as to the date and the time.
Yeah, that's a great lead in. I actually had Eric's name on my notes because of the he's prolific. He's getting a lot of students checked out, and you look in Soaring magazine, and Eric Haupt is shaking hands with someone, helping them get their license or whatever. So if as we the beauty is that we're trying to get organized so that when the good weather comes, we're going to have an operational plan in place where we can go fly. In the meantime, in all these cold or rainy winter evenings, I can't help but think about days gone by in Soaring, and how we're not a young crowd anymore, and guys like Eric have a Rolodex of students that he has trained over the years, and since we do have a relatively large audience, it says 37 participants right now, but they're all going to leave as soon as I start talking anymore. But it seems like the general glider career kind of goes along the lines of if you're lucky and you learned it as a teenager through 18, and maybe you got soloed or you got a license, and then that's good. You had fun doing that, and then you go off to trade school or college, or you get married and have kids young age, and then you end up busy and you're not doing any gliders, and then maybe you come back to it when you come back home in your local area at age 25 to 30, and then you've got kids, and the kids are in the they're doing all their activities. You don't have time for that, and then by the time your kids get a little older, maybe you come back into Soaring at 45, and if you had a license when you were a teenager or 20, you've kind of got a leg up on it. And then maybe when you like me and you're 54 and you go into start working into the golden years here, you have a little bit more time and can fly more gliders. But people that have those Rolodexes like Eric does, or Ian McFall has been teaching the Civil Air Patrol, if there's a way that any of us could reach out to those particular people before they go off to their college or whatever they do, and be able to touch base with them just a little bit to let them know that, hey, there are operations here that are going to happen again, and it didn't. 2020 was not a good year for any type of operation, but if we can cultivate some of those young folks and let them know that we're still going to try to have an operation, and then if we have some two-seaters, we might be able to give some rides to some younger folks too, and that would be the thing I've had the most fun the past couple of years is giving people rides, whether they're 7 years old or 17 or 75 years old. So that's something we can maybe reach out to people that we know and just the network that we have.
Hey, Phil, I'm sorry to break in, but any idea of how we're going to be using the Clubhouse? I'm assuming we're going to be starting to migrate over to Freda probably late April or into May. And some people are going to have vaccines, some people won't. Any thought about how we're going to be using the facilities in Freda?
That's a great question, and one that I don't think that we have been able to properly hash out, at least at the board level. But one of the things that I've seen that kind of works is looking at whatever state or county guidelines are in existence at that point, and then actually talking to the Port of Ephrata manager, and just trying to identify which people have which concerns, and then as a group, is there a way that we can address those concerns? So I don't really have a good answer for you, Tony, but what I do see is a method for at least looking at what guidelines are available, and then looking at whatever people who are in have a say, that they're stakeholder in the operation, like the manager does, or maybe the other people who are working at the field, and then trying to work within a range that will feel comfortable for them. So that's all I can say at this point. We don't have enough data for you.
Yeah, I'd like to add to that. So I did operations last year in Ephrata, and I'm guessing for the dust up, the clubhouse will probably still be closed. That's just my guess. You'll probably have the bathrooms open. You probably have the RV camping open, and you can maintain your social distance. And briefings are either going to be done on a cell phone or me yelling off the deck at people. And the tow pods will probably be in hotel rooms. That's my guess.
And Noel had one other thing you wanted to toss out too.
Couple things if I could. First of all, I want to echo and just reinforce. I think, Phil, Charlie, myself, a couple other folks here on the board, we've had a chance to meet one time officially so far. And I think right now all of us are focused on how can we get back to safe operations first. We know that in order for the club to have cash flow and survive, we need to have towing operations. We know that the flight operations are the most important thing for most of our members. And I think we're really focused on safe and consistent operations to the greatest degree we can this year. And anything to do with the clubhouse, the bathhouse, that's unfortunately kind of bonus time right now. If we can make it happen, great. But as Phil pointed out, some of it is going to be dependent on regional health status. Some of it is just what the airport itself will allow. I know last year, we were looking at doing some socially distanced events in various airports around the West Coast that I was going to go to. And some of them had to cancel, not because they didn't think they could have a safe operation, but because the airport manager literally walked out to the glider folks and said, if you bring a bunch of folks to this airport, 10 folks, 20 folks, 30 folks, we will blame any COVID in the town on you guys. We don't care if you actually are the ones that transmit it. We're going to blame you guys. We're going to go after you guys. We don't want it on our airport. So we don't know yet. I think, we've always had really good support from the airport management out there at Ephrata, but we just don't know yet what this year is going to bring. So I think we're focusing on the right thing, which is towing and gliders, and we'll see if we can work in some of the other things as the year goes along. If I could keep talking for just a quick minute, I do want to jump a couple topics back to operations in June. As Charlie pointed out, I'll be organizing the Region 8 contest. That has gone live, officially sanctioned on the SSA website. So any of you that are interested in flying in the contest, please feel free to go to the SSA site and sign up. Obviously, we're going to monitor the health situation as we get closer to the event. We're going to plan as if the event is going to happen. And if it's some reason at some point, a few weeks before the event, if it's not looking like it can be safely done, we'll cancel, we'll give everybody their money back, but we're really hopeful we can make the event work. There may be outside briefings, kind of to Phil and Charlie's point, but we're planning on it happening, which means not only could we use entrants, but we could also use volunteers. So for any of you that want to get some extra flying in this year, make up for lost ground last year, have some time around experienced pilots, see how they go cross country and do well, helping out at the contest is always a real great way to get a leg up on those skills and those opportunities. You end up working the flight line for 1 to 2 hours of the day. And then if you've got your own glider rigged and ready to go, after the last contest pilot is off the ground, you can go walk over, push your ship out to the line and take a flight and have a wonderful afternoon flight and have all these markers out in front of you, these contest pilots marking the thermals, and you can go have some fun. So if any of you are interested in that, please reach out to me, let me know, shoot me an email, drop a line in text here. We could use, like I said, ground crew volunteers. And for anyone that's a little bit more experienced with the contest scene, could certainly use scorers and some other positions, weather briefing folks. So if anybody's interested or willing to help out, it's a great service both to the glider community and the club. It is a source of income for us every year, as well as being a great opportunity to be around some really good pilots. So thanks, and let me know if any of you have any questions.
Awesome.
Say,
I'd like
Noel?
to get something in.
Go ahead, Mike.
Okay. If you haven't opened it up, there's some chat on the side that people have brought up. And just to, if you haven't read it, I'm just going to read through them real quick. Mason Killebrew asked about space blanket. That's a good idea. Also, Wings and Wheels has the SMAK pack. Couple of articles listed. One by, I think both were by, well, one is chessintheair.com, addresses MacCready and Cruise versus Climb, and then also John Cochran on his website has a bunch of topics about competition soaring, from the basic to the most detailed analytical you can get into. gets into that. Another one that isn't on the list, but Dave Nadler has put his presentation at the last Soaring convention. Last year, he did a talk on his bailout at Nephi, and it's available at either his site, his davenadler.com, or it's a YouTube channel from the of his. He did 2 presentations at the convention, and the other one is some of his comments regarding motor gliders and engine reliability and discussion. But the other one was him and his co-pilot, the cadet who was in the back seat with him, both did a great presentation on what they saw, what they felt, what they did, what happened, and how they got back together with the ground crew. They both landed in 2 separate places, didn't see each other. Totally, I mean, Dave was on the side of a cliff basically, and his parachute opened seconds before impact. So great talk on both, but it gives you a sense of the photographs in there show the terrain, and it is unbelievable. It's lucky they could walk out of there in that terrain. Anyway, so those are some other resources. Okay, I'm done.
Say, Noel.
Yeah.
Hey, I got a question on the Region 8. It's my first year flying it. When do you decide on the classes? Or is that, go ahead.
So we basically decide on the classes on the practice day before, officially. Unofficially, the way the rules read is you need 5 gliders in a class in order to be able to have that class officially scored on its own. And for anyone who's interested in flying their first time, I highly recommend jumping into the sports class. It's a handicapped class, so you run what you brung and you got an even shot for the most part, unless you have an extreme glider at one end or the other. And there is almost always somewhere between 8 and 11 gliders. So basically a third of the field is in the sports class. So we never have to worry about getting enough gliders for that class to happen. Occasionally, the standard class has to be folded in with the 15-meter class, which is, unflapped gliders get folded into 15-meter gliders with flaps, and there's a handicap applied there to try to even that out. But most of the other classes always get 5 entrants, so you should be good there.
All right, thank you.
Phil, can I do one more pitch really quick?
Yeah, you still have your hand up, even though you got done. You still have the hand on that. It's good.
Okay, I'll take care of the hand. Going back to the topic about many of us being a little bit rusty, not having flown much last year, I know I'm in that camp as well. If that may describe you, first of all, as Phil and others have mentioned, good idea to fly with an instructor in the spring, do some checkouts, get back in the groove safely. Before you get there, if you're curious at all, Mike Bamberg has been working with the Willamette Valley group to hold Condor sessions once a week and do mock tasks, some cross-country, some racing tasks. I often offer to hold a little 30 to 45-minute Zoom chat before we get started, and I try to talk about one aspect of cross-country technique or cross-country strategy. And I believe we're doing those mostly on Thursdays. And then also Mike Bamberg is holding a 6 or 7 week cross-country soaring seminar series on Tuesday nights. So if you're relatively new to cross-country, it's covering a lot of the basic ground, and it kind of overlaps with some of the topics we tend to present in the run-up to the dust-up for those folks who are just going cross-country. So if you're interested in getting some Condor time to do some simulation to get back into the groove, feel free to join the Willamette Valley group. Talk to me, I can get you involved in that. Or if you want to try Condor for the first time, talk to me. I'm happy to help anyone get set up with that if you're eager to give it a shot. And if you want the cross-country seminar information, reach out to me. I'm happy to connect you with Mike. He's only held 1 session so far, and it's a basic intro session. It's on YouTube, so you haven't missed anything. It's not too late to join. Let me know.
Just to elaborate on that for Evergreen members, We have a simulator in the clubhouse. I think it sits mostly idle. And we even have, I'm the scheduler for the club. We even have spots where you could put your name in. So, and if you do that and put your time, you can maybe block out a 2-hour time so you're not in a room with anybody else, and it's perfectly safe. And I've used it. I've gone there 3 times. I think I'm going to go this week since the rain doesn't let up anytime soon. Good way to spend a rainy afternoon.
I like it. Thanks, Tony. Okay, anybody have any other things they want to bring up? I mean, we're going to have to stop and have a virtual beer at some point.
You have one more thing. Go ahead, Charlie.
It's James here. I had a comment.
Hey,
It's
James.
actually for Mike Delaney. I was just wondering, how many weeks are we not going to have any tow planes at Arlington? So I'm thinking that perhaps this season more than, regular seasons, some people are going to have to choose not to go to Eastern Washington due to COVID, risks either for themselves or for the family members that they have to consider in their overall scheme of things. I was just wondering how many weeks are we going to be offline altogether with 2 tow planes tied up in Eastern Washington?
So we have to discuss that as a board, but the intention is going to be with the probably exception of the Region 8 to have a tow plane, an active tow plane in Arlington through most of the month of June and of course the rest of the season.
Yeah, okay, sounds good.
Yeah, I
Awesome.
mean, I've been considering Evergreen. I don't think there's much time where there's not one Evergreen plane in Arlington that I can think of right offhand. I mean, I've been looking at the schedule pretty hard, and I think there's not that much demand. I mean, the demand is just one tow plane over in Ephrata for a lot of June, but I don't think we need 2. But depends on Region 8, of course.
Yeah, no, that's fine. I just couldn't interpolate. I didn't take a screenshot of your schedule there. So, but if it's
I'm pretty sure there'll be one in Arlington most of the time, except possibly Region 8.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah.
Sounds good.
Yeah, it's just just from where I stand, we have an obligation to our members to continue operating in Arlington. Again, with the exception perhaps of Region 8 with a tow plane. So once we as long as we've got 2 tow planes flying, we should have one of them scheduled in Arlington.
Yeah, I 100% agree with that.
Okay, well, anybody have anything, other things they want to bring up? I know we all have a long drive home, so at some point, we got to stop the meeting and break off into other discussions, or at least adjourn the meeting. Anybody have any other things they want to bring up, or things to? Mike's got one more thing, I think.
I just want to add that if anybody out there has a question that they think would be an answer and they want to hear me or somebody else, I don't have to do this if I don't have to be the answering, but I do want to get questions or topics for people to disseminate, mentor on. And it could be anything regarding gliders and soaring. So technical, psychological, competition, fun flying, mountain flying. Send me something. That's your inputs are what will make it keep happening. That's all.
Okay, that sounds good. We'll call it a wrap for now, and I guess Mike still got control of the meeting. Is that correct, Mike? Are you the host, or is Noel the host?
No, I think I'm the host.
Okay, yeah, so you're the host. So we'll adjourn at this time, and folks that want to continue to talk offline. I mean, I don't want to run anybody out. If there's that much interest and enthusiasm for Soaring, I mean, I'm here to just beat the band. I mean, I can pull out some cocktail mixers, and we can just have a good old time trying to figure out how to keep the sport from declining and actually get on a, you know, some type of a climb again. So I'm up for stuff like that too. So, or you can ring me offline. You don't have to talk in a big forum like this. And
somehow we ought to make use of the DG.
yeah,
Say again, Heinz?
I hear somebody.
Somehow we ought to make use of the DG to do that.
Yeah, I think we're planning on it. The next board meeting, we're discussing it, and isn't the maintenance their annual setup for March, correct?
Yeah, March the 8th. Okay.
Yeah.
Chris?
So I think we're shooting to get it flying again here. We just, you know, we haven't decided on exactly what we're doing, but I'm pretty sure it's gonna start flying again. I mean, it's the annual scheduled. You know, we're planning on flying it. We just, you know, haven't worked out the fine details. So I think if go ahead.
I'm going along and trying to get 12 people together to form a group, but I'm also kind of saying in the background, hey, if there's somebody else that we can help to get either updated so they can fly safely, or we need to do something for the club, you members need to be helpful in getting that done, because you're not flying the ship 100%, even though you do not.
Right. Yeah, I understand that, but I think the initial plan is to get it flying with the group is in the past, and then we'll kind of go from there.
Okay.
Yeah.
So just in support of that, I think Jim Doverful and I discussed how we've got a huge backlog of people who haven't flown regularly, and flying is not exactly the safest sport if you aren't current. And so trying to figure out how to get people current is a little bit of a problem. The Evergreen Club has 3 places, but we also have a constitution which requires you to be an active member of the club in order to be able to use them. So the DG, it seems to me, ought to be considered. And I know there's insurance ramifications probably for the SGC, but for SGC to help some of their members who maybe are a little bit rusty, who want to fly back, you know, fly with somebody in the back seat, to get that done here this spring, so that by the time we get ready to start flying in the Freda, it won't be a major concern that people are doing strange and crazy things. So please, board of SGC, talk about how that DG might be useful in that regard. And I'm sure we can probably populate it with instructors. We definitely have a lot of people who are rusty and who need to kind of get back in the saddle slowly.
Yeah, I just want to confirm that I'm on board with the annual in March, so it's still on my calendar.
Good, excellent. I'm planning on joining the group this year.
Okay. Anybody have any other things they want to bring up? I think we're going to give a free color television to Jacek. That's what we want to make sure he gets a free color TV out of this deal somehow. But he says he doesn't need one anymore. He's already gotten too many free color TVs out of all of his vast pop-up towing opportunities that he's done for us.
Well, thanks. Just a notice to everybody, the board meeting is a week from Tuesday, a week from tomorrow, 7 p.m. If you're not a board member and you want to attend, call up a board member. They'll forward the Zoom meeting info to you, me or Phil or any of the other board members. And we'll, like I said, board meetings are open to all members. But I'll get that notice out to the board members tomorrow on when that meeting is scheduled and the contact information. I'm done.
Yeah, and Mike, I'll help. We'll scrub the agenda and make sure that we have something that's relevant and not covering the same things we covered last time, unless we really have to. And we'll see if we can get it shorter this time.
Always a challenge.
Yeah, no doubt.
But you got the agenda?
No, I don't have it yet, but I'll type it up. Can you send me that email of that format that you had?
I sent it this afternoon.
Okay, got it. Okay, I'll check my email.
Well, thanks,
Hey,
guys.
I thought it was Jim's job.
Well, I'll talk with Jim too. Jim, he's got weekly contact with me, and he's got so many ideas. So I'm sure I'll be in touch with him.
I'm afraid I'm garrulous.
Yeah,
Well, thanks
can't
for
wait
the
to go
talk, Phil.
see you guys in the air.
Yeah, thanks for the talk, Phil,
Yeah.
and also Mike. I really appreciate it. Good stuff.
Yeah, good topics tonight, guys. Thanks.
Thank you, Tom. Good. Can't wait to see you again out there, man.
All right.
Goodbye.
Have a good
everybody.
night, gents.
All right. Yeah.
You can reach me on NReach. That's where all I can say right now.
Hey, Greg, how you doing? Unmute your mic, man.
What's
Okay,
that?
Where you at?
I'm in Clallam.
Oh, good for you. Come back from Arizona?
Yeah, we came back. Is this a private chat or how's this work?
No, everyone's listening in. I just saying.
Oh, you're just saying it?
I haven't closed it out yet.
I haven't seen you in a while.
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah,
ready to
no,
go.
life's good.
Yeah, I'm ready to go flying with my glider buddy again.
Yeah, I went and got current in a 172 last Friday in Yakima.
Oh, good for you.
And it's kind of funny. It's like first downwind landing. I'm going, okay, let's see, power plane, 1500 RPM, car heat, 1-notch flaps, right? I'm coming around, I'm getting low, add some power, get low, add some power. Wasn't a very good approach, right? So we take off, we come around, I go, you know what? I'm going to do this the way I'm talking to the instructor. I'm going to do this the way I know how it is. The engine just quit. Came around right on over the numbers.
Nice.
Great.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to this year. I'm looking forward to getting back to Twist.
Oh, me too. Yeah, for some reason, I didn't realize that your encampment and SGC's overlapped. I thought they were like yours ended.
No,
and the next one started. Okay.
Yeah, my encampment's a day longer, I think. But yeah, and the upside of that is you can land out at either spot and get immediately retowed.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So, Charlie, you got a spot in Twist open still?
No, sorry, I don't. But you can go to Metho State.
I'm the one that put the electrical place deal in for my plugging in my RV there.
I didn't see it last year. I think they tore it out.
Oh, good. You might have. The new guy running the show down there wasn't real happy with us putting it in there, but he let us do it.
I kind of looked around for it. I didn't see it, so
it's on the pole on that one side there.
I don't know.
Anyway,
yeah,
okay.
There's like 7 or 8 guys with me in Twist, and then
already,
yeah. And then who's over at Metho State? We'll have 2 tow planes at Metho State.
Well, maybe I don't know if there's open over there, but I'm going to at least go for Region 8 at least. So we'll see.
Yeah, me too.
Hi, Nelson. I guess you said hi earlier, so. He has to unmute, I guess.
Yeah.
Anyway. All right. Well, we'll see you guys, I guess.
All right, Tom.
Good to see
you. All right, I'm going to head out too, guys. See you later.
All right. Catch you later, Charlie. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
All right, anybody have anything else? All right. Nobody's talking. I'm going to shut it down. Good night. Until next time. Bye all.